Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to launch a ground offensive in the southern Gaza city of Rafah with or without a hostage deal. This as Hamas considers a ceasefire in exchange for the release of Israeli hostages. Here in the U.S., there's been a major escalation in the protests at Columbia University and dozens of other colleges. Demonstrators against the war on Gaza have now broken into a building on Columbia's campus as tempers there fray.
I can say that there's no business as usual during a genocide, and I'm very proud of my fellow students as well as many faculty members.
You're filled with hate. You are not for the Palestinians. You're against Israel.
Weijia Jiang is at the White House with more on ceasefire negotiations, but we're going to start at Columbia University, and that's where we find our Tom Hanson. Tom, good to see you. I understand the administration is now threatening to expel students if they continue to occupy that building called Hamilton Hall that's right in the middle of campus.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Nancy, but that has not deterred the students who are inside Hamilton Hall. They have been barricaded in there for the entire day since the early hours of the morning when they stormed there, breaking windows, zip-tying doors, even using bike locks to lock themselves inside. No word on if or when they will come out, but they have draped these banners, Free Palestine, along the side of the building. You know, the tension here is ramping up yet again. The barricades are up. The police presence is high as protesters, once again for another night, gather outside of the university gates. You know, they're calling on the university to divest from companies that they say profit from Israel's war in Gaza. That is a negotiation that has completely broken down when the university tossed out those demands. These students, though, say they will not leave until those demands are met. So as to when these protests are winding down, that is still anyone's guess. Nancy?
Okay, so let's talk about those demands, Tom. The protesters say that they want Columbia to sell all of its investments that are related to Israel. Is there any possibility that that will happen?
You know, that's a great question, Nancy. And let's look at history as a precedent here, because in the 1980s, students did almost the exact same thing at this very hall over my shoulder when it came to protesting the apartheid state in South Africa. Now, the university did reluctantly go along with the demands of the students ultimately. However, the dynamic this time is much different. The university has come out saying they will not heed those demands. And divestment in general, as I mentioned, means that the students want the university to cut ties with companies that they say profit from Israel's war in Gaza. The students we've spoken to cite companies that manufacture weapons. They've also cited tech companies that they say perpetuate settlements in Israel. So it really is a long list of companies that they have that they say they want the university to cut ties with. You know, that's a big ask for the university. It's a lot to consider. So far, the university says no. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And the university has a big dilemma on its hand. The president sent out a letter to alumni saying that students who don't commit to the terms that they're being offered and leave Hamilton Hall are now being suspended. Seniors will be ineligible to graduate. The university says this is about responding to the actions of the protesters, not their cause. They're creating a threatening environment. But so far, Tom, have you seen any students actually being suspended or dragged out of that hall?
Not yet. No, we have not, Nancy. But I can tell you, speaking to the environment that this has fostered for students on both sides of this issue, they have told me that they do not feel safe on this campus. That is something that is obviously a priority for the university, a big concern for university officials as we move ahead. But both sides agreeing on one thing. Maybe they can't agree on everything, but they are agreeing on one thing. A lot of students don't feel safe at this current moment. Nancy?
A big challenge for so many universities right now. How do you allow free speech, peaceful free speech, but also ensure that other students feel safe? Tom Hanson at Columbia University tonight. Thanks so much. And Columbia is far from the only university where tensions are rising. Classes at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, for instance, have been canceled after police broke up a pro-Palestinian encampment and detained some students. While at the University of Texas at Austin, protesters are staying put even after riot police made dozens of arrests on Monday. Weijia Jiang joins us now from the White House to discuss all of this. Weijia, the White House came out pretty forcefully to condemn the takeover of that building on Columbia's campus. What are they saying?
That's right. President Biden himself has only spoken out once publicly since all of these protests really started ramping up, but certainly through his spokesperson for the National Security Council, John Kirby, it is clear that the White House is rebuking what happened. Kirby saying that this is absolutely the wrong approach and that it is not an example of peaceful protest. We also got a paper statement in which a spokesperson said President Biden has stood against repugnant anti-Semitic smears and violent rhetoric his entire life. And even though the president respects the right to free expression, he does condemn any kind of language that leads to hate or incites violence. And so you can see that, Nancy, this is a really tricky line for President Biden because while he wants to support these protesters, he also has to make clear where he stands on how other students are feeling, which really is a reflection of how he's been trying to navigate the war in a broader sense, too.
Yeah, really interesting how they're calling out the use of particular terms like the word intifada. Weijia, the White House has made it really clear that they don't support a ground invasion of Rafah unless there's also a plan to protect civilians there. But I want to play you a clip of what the State Department spokesman Vedant Patel had to say today after the Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu announced that he does plan to invade Rafah, whether there's a hostage deal or not. Take a listen.
We have not seen a credible plan that would address the varying areas of concerns that you've heard me talk about a number of times from up here and others, primarily the ability to address the serious humanitarian concerns surrounding, again, Rafah is a region with more than 1 million people seeking refuge. It's an area that continues to be an important conduit for humanitarian aid as well as a safe departure for foreign nationals. And so any kind of operation that does not address some of these key concerns would certainly be opposed by us.
So you've got U.S. officials saying they still haven't heard any plan from the Israelis about how they keep civilians safe in Rafah. What are they making of Netanyahu's new threat that he's going to invade anyway?
Well, even though this is his latest remark, it's not exactly new in terms of his position. The past few times Netanyahu has made public remarks about a potential ground invasion, he has made pretty clear that, yeah, we hear the critics, we hear allies even, but Netanyahu said he's going to proceed anyway and has in the past even said he has chosen a date for this ground invasion. And even though the U.S. continues to say, Nancy, that they do not support this, they have not crystallized what potential consequences would be if there were an invasion. Of course, we should point out that the Biden administration has said that if Israel does not change its approach to the war, then the U.S. would have to change its approach. But we don't have any details about whether that means conditions on aid, whether that means sanctions, because, of course, this is a really important relationship that the president is trying to preserve while also telling Netanyahu how he feels about his strategy.
Yep, you've been asking, we've all been asking, but so far we haven't gotten a lot of specifics on that particular topic. Weijia Jiang, thanks so much.
You're welcome.